I can't win with the sun. It's either not shining into my windows at all, or it is like directly in front of my window and I look like a ghost. Sorry about that. So today I want to do a review of Song of Solomon by Toni Morrison. This edition is by Vintage International, and it is about 340 pages long. This book was originally published in 1977. It is the story of a young man called Milkman, and it's kind of his coming-of-age tale. He's growing up in the North in Michigan, I believe, during the 30s, 40s, and 50s, so kind of during the period in American history known as the Great Migration. And it was a really, really beautiful book. I forgot how much I love Toni Morrison. So I'll tell you before I go any further that I did give this book 5 out of 5 stars. I don't want to give away any plot points necessarily, because as a coming-of-age tale, you kind of just have to get involved with the character development that's going on here. This book is very heavy on character development. It's got some really awesome plot points, but it's not huge on plot. You're in the minds of characters quite frequently, and you get to see a lot in how these characters within one family, for the most part, relate to one another. I love family stories like that of any kind. This one's even better because along with this really interesting study of familial relationships, you also have all of these really poignant points about race and class during the, I guess, mid-20th century, early mid-20th century. Before we go any further, I want to share one quote with you that stuck out to me. It blew me away because it showed me how pertinent this novel still is, even though it was published over 30 years ago, and how relevant its messages are, and how the culture in the United States regarding race relations and class relations really hasn't changed. So this quote is from a scene where there are a bunch of gentlemen standing around the barber shop exchanging gossip, and they're talking about a friend of theirs that they know who was recently arrested. "They say Till had a knife," Freddie said. "They always say that. He could have had a wad of bubble gum. They'd swear it was a hand grenade." So if you know anything about the going-ons in the United States regarding race relations in the past few years, you'll have heard of the Trayvon Martin case. You will have heard of Ferguson. You will have recently heard of the senseless executions of 3 young students that actually occurred in my town where I live. And it's just amazing. You know, with the Trayvon Martin case, he was carrying, Skittles and a bottle of soda. And that's exactly what this is saying. He said he could have had bubble gum. They would have said it was a hand grenade. And it floored me that you would think that there would have been some progress in the last 35 years. And I'm not saying that there hasn't been, but the fact that just that little moment is in these pages in a book that was written in the 70s, that's taking place in the 40s, really demonstrated to me how far we still have to go. I'm not going to talk about, socio-political issues in the U.S. right now anymore. It really upsets me. But I just want to point out that, people talk about reading diversely, and it's kind of becoming like this broken record thing on BookTube now, where it's kind of starting to, I feel like, spurn a little bit of animosity. And I just want to demonstrate that it's so important, because you can find these moments that really, really show you how much work we still have to do. And you're probably never going to read a white author who could so perfectly describe a climate of racial tension as well as Toni Morrison does. There are a ton of themes in this book. I was like up into the night scribbling in the margins and taking notes in my little book journal that I have. One of the most interesting things that I observed is that, so Milkman, his father is quite wealthy for a black man in the 1940s. and they live in an all-black community, but his father he's not respected by whites, and because he's wealthy, he's not respected by blacks either. And so there's this tension. Nobody really accepts him and nobody really respects him because everyone thinks that he's trying to be somebody that he's not, that he's a race traitor. And I thought that quality of tension was very interesting throughout the novel. And you see that with Milkman too, because Milkman is his father's son. He is not respected by people who he considers his friends because he's never had to work for anything in his life and it's all been handed to him. And she relates these issues of class, and she tells us that yes, everyone knows that racism between whites and blacks exists, but let me tell you about the classism. Let me tell you about how where someone is born can affect how they treat outsiders. Toni Morrison could have made this book about racism. She could have made this book about the white man suppressing the black man. It could have easily gone that way. It still would have probably been a beautiful book. But instead, she takes a closer look at what's going on. And then there's also this tension between, as I said, with Milkman's father, there's this very obvious tension between black people who have made money and who are comfortable and who are not working blue-collar jobs, and black people who are struggling to pay their bills. And there is tension between those two groups as well. Each group appears to view the other group as bringing down the race. And so it's so amazing to see in a book that takes place about 70 years after the Emancipation Proclamation, all of that. It's so interesting to see how the institutions of slavery carry on in the black experience in this book through the Great Migration, no matter whether they have money, no matter whether they have achieved a higher class status, that there's not only this racial tension between whites and black, but there is so much classism and it's just so much hatred and so much tension. And I mean, this book completely broke my heart. It is totally worth reading, you guys. We're only halfway through Black History Month, but any time of the year, you shouldn't just be reading books by black authors because it's Black History Month. That's another video for another day. I would recommend this book to literally everyone. I don't care if you don't like literary fiction. I don't care if you don't like coming-of-age novels. This book is so important that you need to read it. And that's really all I have to say. As you can tell, I have a lot of feelings about this book. It has stuck with me. I find myself applying its themes to the way that I treat other human beings and to the way that people around me treat each other and just to our higher, the overarching political and social issues in the United States right now. So this book is important and you need to read it. And that's all I have to say today. Let's talk in the comments if you've read it, if you haven't read it, if you've read anything else by Morrison that you want to talk about, please let me know, and I will see you all soon.